Ambassador John Mitchell walked through the long halls of the Galaxy Council Station with heavy steps. His face showed the anger that had been building for 3 long years. The latest news had pushed him past his breaking point. The Council had just given the Zephyrian Empire the right to mine in Earth's solar system. They did this without asking humans what they thought about it. They did this like humans did not matter at all. John had spent 3 years trying to make the Council listen to human needs. Every time he spoke in the Great Council Hall, the alien members would look at him like he was a child asking for candy. They would nod and smile with their strange faces, then do whatever they wanted anyway. The tall Etherian Chancellor Vexthari was the worst of them all. He would click his bug-like mouthparts and wave his 4 arms like he was being very patient. With a stupid pet. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was in her ship far from the Council Station when the message came. The Use Phoenix was patrolling the edge of human space, watching for pirates and keeping trade routes safe. Lisa had been doing this job for 10 years. She knew every star in this part of space. When her communication officer handed her the encrypted message from Earth Command, she thought it would be another routine order. Maybe they wanted her to escort some merchant ships or check on a mining station, but when she read the message, her hands started to shake. The words were simple, but they changed everything. All human ships were to leave Council space right now. All human diplomats were to come home. All human bases were to be closed down. There would be no more talking with the Council. There would be no more working together. Humans were cutting all ties with the galactic government. Lisa read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it right. Then she called her bridge crew together. These men and women had been with her through dangerous times. They had fought pirates together. They had saved colonies together. Now she had to tell them that everything was changing. The crew listened in silence as Lisa read the orders out loud. When she finished, nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, her first officer spoke up. He asked if this meant they were going to war. Lisa shook her head. This was not about war. This was about dignity. Humans were tired of being treated like they did not matter. Back at the Council Station, John Mitchell prepared for his last day as Earth's ambassador. He had written his final speech the night before. Every word was chosen carefully. He wanted the Council to understand that this was not a game. This was not humans having a bad mood. This was the end of everything. The Council Hall was huge. It could hold representatives from 500 different worlds. The ceiling was so high that small clouds formed near the top. Each species had their own section with special chairs and breathing equipment. The human section was small compared to the others. It only had space for 12 people. John had always thought this was meant to remind humans that they were not very important. When John's turn came to speak, he stood up slowly. The hall became quiet. Even the Voltarians stopped their constant humming. Even the gas-breathing methanoids stopped releasing their smell clouds. John looked around the hall one more time. He had memorized every face, every strange alien feature. He would never see this place again. John's voice was calm and clear when he spoke. He said that humans were leaving the Council forever. He said that Earth would no longer follow Council laws. He said that human space would be independent from now on. The Council could keep their treaties and their rules. Humans would make their own way in the galaxy. The reaction was immediate. The Zephyrian delegate jumped up and started shouting in his squeaky voice. The Drakmoran representative pounded his fist on his desk so hard that the metal bent. Chancellor Vexthari clicked his mouthparts so fast it sounded like a machine gun. They were all angry. They were all shocked. None of them had expected humans to do something so bold. Dr. Kevin Walsh was working in his laboratory on Kepler Station when the evacuation order came. He had been studying alien plant life with a team of Voltarian scientists for 2 years. They had become friends despite coming from different worlds. The Voltarians were gentle people who loved learning new things. Kevin enjoyed working with them. They had taught him so much about how life could grow in different ways. When Kevin told his alien friends that all humans had to leave right away, they were very sad. The Voltarians made soft singing sounds when they were upset. The whole laboratory filled with their mournful songs. They asked Kevin why this was happening. They asked if they had done something wrong. Kevin tried to explain, but he did not fully understand it himself. All across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human cargo ships changed course and headed home. Human research stations were packed up in hours. Human colonies that were in council space got ready to move to independent territory. It was like watching a giant machine that had been working smoothly suddenly pull all its parts back together. The speed of the withdrawal surprised everyone, including some humans. It was clear that Earth Command had been planning this for months. Every human ship knew exactly where to go. Every human base had detailed evacuation plans ready. The council members realized that while they had been ignoring human complaints, humans had been preparing for this day. Captain Lisa Rodriguez started her ship's engines and set course for human space. Behind her, the lights of the council station grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared completely. She did not look back again. None of the humans did. They were done with begging for respect. From now on, they would earn it on their own terms. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was starting to feel empty in ways nobody had expected. The first sign came from the shipping companies. Trade routes that had run smoothly for decades were now backed up with delayed cargo. Ships were arriving late at every major port. Goods were piling up in warehouses because there were not enough vessels to move them. Admiral Carl Peterson sat in his command center on Luna Base, watching reports come in from across human space. Every human ship, every human station, every human outpost had been successfully moved to independent territory. The operation had taken 3 months of non-stop work, but it was finally complete. No human assets remained in council space. No human citizens lived under council law anymore. Carl felt proud of what they had accomplished. The council had always treated humans like junior partners, like children who needed guidance from their wise alien elders. But the withdrawal had shown something important. Humans were not dependent on the council. If anything, the council had been depending on humans more than anyone realized. On the council station, Chancellor Vexthari was having the worst months of his long career. His office was filled with complaints from member species every single day. The Drakmoran mining companies were screaming about lost profits. Their operations had slowed down by 60% without human engineers and technicians. The Drakmorans were strong and tough, but they were not very good with complex machinery. They needed human help to keep their equipment running. The Silenthian art traders were even more upset. These elegant, musical people had built their entire economy around selling beautiful objects to other species. But it turned out that humans had been buying almost half of everything they made. Without human customers, the Silenthian economy was crashing. Their leader had sent Vexthari 12 angry messages in just 1 week. Even the food distribution networks were having problems. Humans had been growing and shipping agricultural products all across the galaxy. They were very good at farming in different environments. They could grow food on desert planets, ice worlds, and even in space stations. Without human farmers, many worlds were facing food shortages for the first time in centuries. Commander Amy Foster was patrolling the new border between human space and council territory. Her job was to make sure no council ships entered human space without permission. Every day, council vessels would approach the border and ask to come in. Every day, Amy would politely tell them no. The conversations were always the same. Council ships would say they had important business in human space. Amy would tell them that all council business was now handled through official channels, and those channels were closed. The council captains would get angry and demand to speak to someone in charge. Amy would give them the same recorded message that every human ship was playing. Humanity wished all galactic species well, but would only talk to them one-on-one. Outside the council system, some council ships tried to force their way past the border. These attempts ended quickly when human defense fleets appeared out of nowhere. The humans never fired first, but they made it very clear that they would defend their space. After a few embarrassing retreats, most council ships stopped trying. To push through. Dr. Rebecca Turner was working harder than she ever had in her life. Before the withdrawal, she had been part of a mixed alien and human research team studying quantum physics. Now she was leading an all-human team trying to make up for lost collaboration. It was difficult at first. The alien scientists had brought different ways of thinking to their work. But Rebecca discovered something interesting. Without aliens to rely on, humans were coming up with new ideas faster than ever before. Human research stations were being built at record speed. Scientists who had been scattered across the galaxy were now working together in ways they never had before. They were sharing information freely and taking risks that mixed teams had been too careful to try. The results were impressive. Human technology was advancing at a rate that surprised even the humans themselves. The Council tried many times to contact human leaders. They sent formal diplomatic messages. They tried using back channels through friendly alien species. They even tried broadcasting messages on public frequencies, hoping humans would listen. Every attempt got the same response. An automated message system would thank them for their interest and direct them to file their requests through proper channels. But those channels did not exist anymore. Chancellor Vexthari called emergency meetings with other council leaders. They needed to figure out what to do about the human problem. Some members wanted to use military force to bring humans back into the council. Others thought they should offer humans better deals to convince them to return. A few suggested that they should just wait. Maybe humans would get tired of being alone and come back on their own, but the waiting strategy was not working. Intelligence reports showed that human space was growing stronger every day. Human colonies were expanding. Human fleets were getting bigger. Human technology was improving at frightening speed. The longer the council waited, the stronger humans became. The economic problems were getting worse too. The Zephyrian Empire had finally gotten those mining rights they wanted so badly. But without human support, their mining operations were a disaster. Human engineers had designed most of the equipment. Human technicians had maintained it. Human logistics experts had organized the supply chains. Without humans, the Zephyrians were losing money on every ton of ore they dug up. Other species were starting to ask difficult questions. If humans could leave the council and do better on their own, why were they staying? The Voltarians were the first to officially request information about establishing direct relations with humans. Their request was politely ignored by council leadership, but word spread quickly. Soon, dozens of other species were making similar inquiries. The council faced a choice. They could try to force humans back, which might lead to war. They could offer humans everything they wanted, which would make the council look weak. Or they could do nothing and watch their authority crumble as more species followed the human example. None of these options looked good. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty Galactic Council was facing a crisis it could not simply vote away. 6 months after humans had left the council, the galaxy was starting to fall apart. The economic problems that had seemed manageable at first were now growing into a full crisis. Entire star systems were reporting shortages of basic goods. Trade routes that had operated for hundreds of years were shutting down because there were not enough ships to carry cargo. Captain Steve Holland watched council reconnaissance ships from the bridge of his defense vessel. The aliens were trying to be sneaky about it, but human sensors were very good at detecting other ships. These scout vessels had been watching New Geneva colony for weeks now. They would stay just outside the system, take pictures and recordings, then leave before human patrol ships could reach them. Steve knew what they were looking for. The council wanted to know how strong human defenses had become. They were probably shocked by what they found. New Geneva had been a small mining colony 6 months ago. Now it was turning into a major military base. Huge defense platforms orbited the planet. Squadrons of human fighters patrolled the system constantly. The message was clear. Humans were ready for trouble, but Steve was not just showing off military strength. He was also making sure the council spies saw how well humans were doing. New Geneva was growing fast. New buildings were going up every day. The population had doubled in 6 months as humans moved in from other systems. The economy was booming. People looked happy and confident. This was not a species that was suffering from isolation. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez had one of the strangest jobs in human space. She was the Minister of Independent Relations, which meant she handled requests from alien species who wanted to talk to humans directly. Her office received dozens of messages every day from species that were getting tired of council politics. They wanted to make their own deals with humans. The Voltarians had been the first to make an official request. These gentle people had worked closely with humans for many years. They respected human creativity and energy. When the council tried to forbid direct contact with humans, the Voltarians politely ignored the order. They sent a formal diplomatic mission to human space and asked to establish an embassy. Elena was very careful about these requests. Humans did not want to start a war with the council, but they also would not let the council control who they could talk to. Each alien request was studied carefully. Species that had been friendly to humans in the past got quick approval. Species that had supported anti-human policies had to wait longer and prove they had changed. The council was facing bigger problems than just economic trouble. The hegemony of Krath had been quiet for decades, but now they were moving again. These aggressive reptilian warriors had always wanted to expand their territory. They had been held back by council threats and human military patrols. But with humans gone and the council weakened, the Krath saw their chance. 3 Krath fleets had already attacked border systems. The council's own military was spread too thin to respond quickly. In the old days, they would have called for human assistance. Human fleets were fast and human soldiers were excellent fighters. But now the humans were gone, and the council was learning how much they had depended on human military support. Dr. Christopher Hayes was working on humanity's most ambitious project ever. Deep in the asteroid belt around Alpha Centauri, human engineers were building something that had never been attempted before. They called it the Genesis Project. It was a massive construction effort to build ships that could carry entire cities to other galaxies. The project was not just about exploration. It was about sending a message. Humans were not just leaving the council. They were leaving the entire galaxy if they wanted to. These generation ships would be completely self-sufficient. They could travel for thousands of years without needing to stop for supplies. If the council thought they could wait for humans to come crawling back, they were very wrong. Christopher had been inspired by the old human dream of reaching the stars. But the council had always discouraged such projects. They said the galaxy had enough inhabited systems already. They said humans should focus on developing existing worlds instead of looking for new ones. Now, without council interference, humans were free to dream as big as they wanted. The independent human colonies were experiencing something they had never seen before. These worlds had never been under council control, but they had always been isolated and poor. Now, with resources and people flowing in from former council space, they were becoming rich and powerful. New Hong Kong went from a struggling frontier town to a major industrial center in just 6 months. The success of these colonies was attracting attention from non-human species too. Alien refugees who were unhappy with council policies started showing up at human worlds. Most of them were individuals or small groups, but some were entire communities. They had heard that humans treated everyone fairly, regardless of species. They wanted to see if the stories were true. Elena's office handled these refugee requests very carefully. Humans remembered what it felt like to be unwanted and ignored. They were willing to help alien refugees, but they also needed to be careful not to create problems with the council. Each case was reviewed individually. Refugees who were running from real persecution got protection. Those who just wanted better economic opportunities had to apply through normal immigration procedures. The council was starting to panic. Internal reports showed that their authority was cracking. Member species were ignoring council directives more often. Some were establishing unauthorized contact with humans. Others were threatening to leave the council entirely. The Silenthian leader had publicly stated that her people were considering independence. Chancellor Vexthare called for a closed session of the council leadership. Only the most senior members were allowed to attend. They needed to discuss the human crisis, without other species listening in. The meeting lasted for 3 days. Arguments broke out constantly. Some leaders wanted to declare war on humanity. Others wanted to offer complete surrender to human demands. Nobody could agree on what to do. The worst part was that they were starting to realize how badly they had underestimated humans. Intelligence reports painted a terrifying picture. Human technology was advancing faster than anyone thought possible. Human colonies were multiplying rapidly. Human military strength was growing every day. The species that the Council had dismissed as junior partners was becoming a major galactic power, but the most frightening discovery was how well humans were treating their new alien partners. Species that established direct relations with humans reported fair deals, honest negotiations, and genuine respect. It was everything the Council claimed to offer but rarely delivered. If other species realized that humans were better partners, then the Council, the galactic government, would collapse completely. 1 full year had passed since humans cut all ties with the Galactic Council, and the galaxy looked completely different now. 3 major species had officially left the Council to join what humans were calling the Independent Systems Alliance. The Voltarians had been first, followed by the artistic Silenthians and the technical hegemony of Jorvik. Each departure had made the Council weaker and the Human Alliance stronger. President Margaret Stevens stood before the United Earth. Assembly in the new capital city on Mars, the third planet, had been transformed in just 12 months. What had once been a small research outpost was now a gleaming metropolis with millions of residents. Massive domes covered thriving cities. Underground factories produced for dozens of worlds. The transformation was a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they were free to follow their own path. Margaret's speech was broadcast across human space and beyond. She talked about the remarkable progress humanity had made during their year of independence. The human population had grown by 15% as people moved from crowded Earth to new colonies. Human technology had advanced more in 1 year than in the previous 10. Human territory had expanded to include 47 star systems. But the most important change was not in numbers. It was in how humans felt about themselves. For the first time in decades, humans were confident about their future. They were no longer asking permission from alien governments to explore new worlds or develop new technologies. They were making their own decisions and living with the results. General Patrick Murphy commanded the defense of human space from his fortress station orbiting Proxima Centauri. The station was a marvel of human engineering. It was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and sensors. It could detect enemy ships from 50 light-years away and destroy them before they could get close to human worlds. Patrick had been getting disturbing intelligence reports for weeks. Council. Military leaders were meeting in secret. Some member species were talking about using force to bring humans back into the galactic community. The idea was insane, but desperate people sometimes did insane things. Patrick was making sure humans were ready if the Council decided to try military action. The fortress station was not just a military base. It was also a message. Anyone who wanted to attack human space would have to get past defenses like this first. Patrick made sure that Council reconnaissance ships got good pictures of the station's weapons. He wanted them to understand what they would be facing if they chose war over diplomacy. Dr. Nicholas Carter was working in his laboratory when the breakthrough came. He had been trying to improve human faster than light travel for 6 months. The current human ships were fast, but Council species still had better technology in some areas. Nicholas wanted to change that. He wanted humans to be the fastest species in the galaxy. The solution came from an unexpected source. Old human theories that had been dismissed by alien scientists turned out to be correct. By combining human intuition with advanced mathematics, Nicholas created a new type of drive system. The first test flight exceeded all expectations. The prototype ship traveled faster than any vessel in recorded galactic history. The implications were staggering. With this new technology, humans could explore and colonize at rates that would leave other species far behind. They could reach distant galaxies in years instead of centuries. They could spread human civilization across the universe faster than anyone could stop them. Chancellor Vexthari was facing the worst crisis of his career. The council chamber that had once been filled with hundreds of representatives now looked empty. Entire sections sat vacant as species after species withdrew from the galactic government. The remaining members were nervous and angry. They blamed the council leadership for losing control of the situation. The latest departure had been the most shocking. The Etherian Assembly, Vexthari's own people, had voted to establish independent relations with humans. They were not leaving the council completely, but they were making it clear that council authority was no longer absolute. If Vexthari's own species would not support him, emergency sessions were called almost daily now. The remaining council members argued constantly about what to do. Military leaders wanted to attack human space before it became too strong. Economic advisors wanted to offer humans massive concessions to bring them back. Political experts suggested that the council should simply dissolve and reform. Under human leadership, the hegemony of Krath was taking advantage of the chaos. Their fleets had conquered 5 more systems while the council was distracted by the human crisis. Each Krath victory made the council look weaker and more incompetent. Species that had once trusted council protection were now making their own defense arrangements. Commander Helen Brooks intercepted another diplomatic vessel trying to reach human space. This one was different from the usual council ships. It carried Elder Keshtavi, one of the most respected diplomats in the galaxy. The ancient Etherian had negotiated peace treaties that had lasted for centuries. If anyone could convince humans to return to the council, it would be him, but Helen's orders were clear. No council representatives could enter human space, regardless of who they were or what they claimed to want. She politely informed Elder Keshtavi that all diplomatic communications had to go through official channels. Those channels remained closed. The old diplomat's ship was escorted back to the border without being allowed to deliver his message. The rejection of Elder Keshtavi sent shockwaves through the galactic community. If humans would not even listen to the most respected diplomat in the galaxy, they truly were done with the council forever. Species that had been considering reconciliation with the council began to reconsider. If humans were so confident in their independence, maybe they were right to leave. Human colonies were reporting strange visitors. Alien ships were arriving daily, carrying refugees, traders, and diplomats from dozens of species. Most were not coming through official channels. They were individuals or small groups who had heard about human success and wanted to see it for themselves. Human immigration offices were overwhelmed with applications from aliens who wanted to live in human space. The refugee situation was becoming particularly complex. Entire alien communities were fleeing council space to seek protection in human territory. They were running from economic collapse, political persecution, and military threats that the council could no longer handle. Humans found themselves becoming the protectors of species that had once looked down on them. Elena Rodriguez's office had grown from a small diplomatic service to a major government department. She now supervised hundreds of diplomats and administrators who handled relations with dozens of alien species. The Independent Systems Alliance was becoming a real government. Not just a collection of human colonies, the alliance was built on principles that were radical by galactic standards. Every member species had equal representation, regardless of size or military strength. Decisions were made by consensus rather than by the strongest voices. Economic benefits were shared fairly instead of being hoarded by the most powerful. It was everything the council had claimed to be, but never actually was. As the second year of independence began, humans were no longer thinking about the Galactic Council at all. They were focused on building something better. The old galaxy was dying, and a new one was being born under human leadership. The Council's authority was crumbling, but humans were creating something to replace it. The future belonged to those who were brave enough to seize it. 2 years had passed since humans severed all ties with the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was completely transformed. The Independent Systems Alliance now included over 40 species, making it larger and more diverse than the Council had ever been. The difference was that Alliance members had joined voluntarily because they believed in human principles of equality and cooperation. Captain Daniel Morgan stood on the bridge of his exploration vessel as it prepared to make history. The UZ Pioneer was about to become the first ship to leave the galaxy entirely. Behind him, representatives from 12 different alien species watched the preparations with excitement. They were joining humans on a journey to explore other galaxies, something the Council had always forbidden. The new faster-than-light drive that Dr. Nicholas Carter had developed made this journey possible. The ship could travel distances that would have taken centuries in just a few years. More importantly, it could carry enough supplies and equipment to establish permanent colonies in whatever galaxy they reached. This was not just exploration. This was expansion on a scale never before attempted. Daniel felt the weight of history as he gave the order to jump. In a flash of light, the Pioneer disappeared from the galaxy that had been humanity's home for thousands of years. Behind them, they left a galaxy where humans were no longer the junior partners begging for acceptance. They were the leaders of a new order that valued cooperation over domination. President Margaret Stevens was preparing for the most important ceremony in human history. In the Great Hall of New Geneva, representatives from over 100 species had gathered to witness the signing of the Charter of Galactic Independence. This document would officially establish the principles that would guide the Independent Systems Alliance for generations to come. The charter was revolutionary in its simplicity. Every species would be treated equally regardless of size, age, or military power. Decisions would be made through discussion and consensus rather than force. Resources would be shared fairly among all members. Most importantly, no species would ever again be forced to beg for basic dignity and respect. Margaret looked out at the assembled delegates and felt proud of what humanity had accomplished. 2 years ago, humans had been dismissed as a minor species barely worthy of Council attention. Now, they were the leaders of a galactic movement that was changing how different species related to each other. The Galactic Council was holding what everyone knew would be its final session. Chancellor Vexthari looked out at the nearly empty chamber and felt the weight of failure crushing down on him. Only 12 species remained as full Council members. The rest had either joined the Human Alliance or declared complete independence. The Zephyrian Empire, ironically, was among the last to abandon the Council. They had started the whole crisis by demanding mining rights in human space. Now they realized that their victory had been meaningless. Without human support, their mining operations had failed completely. They had gained the right to mine worthless rocks while losing access to the most dynamic economy in the galaxy. The final vote was purely ceremonial. The remaining Council members voted to dissolve the Galactic Council permanently. Some members would try to join the Human Alliance. Others would attempt to survive as independent worlds. A few would probably be conquered by aggressive neighbors like the Krath. The 1,000-year-old galactic government was officially dead. Ambassador Susan Collins was preparing to open the first embassy of the Independent Systems Alliance on the neutral world of Haven's Rest. The planet had been chosen because it was accessible to species from all parts of the galaxy. Any species that wanted to join the Alliance or establish relations with it could send representatives there. The line of applicants stretched across continents. Species that had never been allowed meaningful participation in galactic politics were eager to join an organization that promised them real equality. Others were fleeing the chaos that had followed the Council's collapse. Still others were simply drawn by the economic opportunities that Alliance membership provided. Susan's job was to evaluate each application carefully. The Alliance was not just accepting anyone who applied. Species had to demonstrate that they shared human values of cooperation and mutual respect. Those who were used to dominating others or being dominated had to prove they could adapt to a more equal relationship. Dr. Victoria Adams was working on humanity's most ambitious scientific project. Her team had successfully established communication with civilizations in the nearby Andromeda galaxy. The breakthrough opened infinite possibilities for expansion and knowledge sharing. Instead of being limited to one galaxy, humans and their allies could now reach civilizations across the universe. The discovery also solved a problem that had been worrying human leaders. Some species had expressed concern that humans were becoming too powerful within the alliance. The ability to communicate with other galaxies meant that power could be shared even more widely. Alien civilizations from other galaxies could join the alliance and bring their own perspectives and abilities. Victoria's work represented everything that the alliance stood for. Knowledge was being shared freely among all member species. The benefits of discovery were available to everyone, not hoarded by the most powerful. Cooperation between different types of beings was creating advances that no single species could have achieved alone. The old Galactic Council space station was being converted into a museum. The vast chambers where alien politicians had once made decisions for billions of beings were now exhibition halls showing the history of galactic civilization. Tour groups from Alliance worlds visited regularly to learn about how not to run a galactic government. Former Chancellor Vexthari had volunteered to be one of the museum guides. He spent his days explaining to visitors how the council had failed. He talked about the arrogance that had led council members to dismiss human concerns. He described the economic and political mistakes that had weakened the galactic government. Most importantly, he warned visitors about the dangers of treating any species as inferior. The transformation of the galaxy was nearly complete, where there had once been one massive government that tried to control everyone. There were now dozens of smaller governments that worked together voluntarily. The Independent Systems Alliance was the largest and most successful, but it was not trying to dominate the others. Instead, it offered cooperation and assistance to any group that shared its values. Trade was flowing more freely than ever before. Without council regulations and bureaucracy, species could make deals directly with each other. Innovation was accelerating as different species shared their knowledge and techniques. Conflicts were being resolved through negotiation rather than force. The galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in centuries. As human ships carried the Alliance flag to distant stars, a new era began. The old galaxy had been based on hierarchy and domination. The new galaxy was built on cooperation and mutual respect. It had taken humans to show the rest of the galaxy that there was a better way to live together among the stars. The Council's panic had been justified, but their response had been exactly wrong. In trying to control humanity, they had lost control of everything else. They had created the very situation they had feared most. Humans were indeed taking over the galaxy, but not through conquest or domination. They were doing it by offering something better than what had come before. They were proving that the strongest force in the universe was not military might or political power, but the simple idea that every intelligent being deserved dignity and respect.